Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Divided Films, the podcast where audiences and critics disagree about movies and we pick a side. With me, as always, is my co-host, Keith.
Hello.
And joining us on the podcast today, our good friend, Bobby Tarino. Welcome, Bobby.
Hello.
It's actually...
Sharing the wealth.
There you go. Good to have you on for the first time, Bobby.
Thank you for having me.
And I really escaped my mind. You told me a second ago people can find you on Twitch. And what was the name of your handle again?
Yeah, Chicken Tendo 64.
Oh, right. Definitely is making me hungry just thinking about it. But thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Absolutely.
For our episode. So this week we are discussing the 2004 thriller, The Butterfly Effect, starring Ashton Kutcher. This movie falls into the category of having a negative score with critics and a positive score with audiences. On Rotten Tomatoes, 33% of critics approve, 81% of audiences approve, so you have a 48% difference there. That's pretty significant. And the critics' consensus, the premise is intriguing, but it's placed in the service of an overwrought and tasteless thriller. And I personally think the word that is key in that consensus is tasteless.
Yeah.
This movie, for me, is really going for extremes and does not have any sort of subtlety or finesse. It is just going, I feel like a lot of times, for like the lowest common denominator.
Oh, yeah.
But there you have it. I'm not surprised by this particular divide. Bobby, as our guest, what is your experience with this movie, and what are your thoughts about this divide?
So it's funny. I messaged you the other day, or I messaged one of you, and
Right.
I was fully prepared to defend this movie. I enjoyed it back in the day, and until I watched it a couple of days ago, and
Yeah.
I, in good conscience, cannot recommend this one. But we can go into that. To give my little blurb, I guess if Donnie Darko is alternative rock, Butterfly Effect is nu metal. That you have nostalgia for. You might remember it fondly, but it's not good.
Is dare I say, is Butterfly Effect the Nickelback of films?
It might be the Nickelback of time travel, but we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
And what about you, Keith?
I'm with Bobby that I had fond memories of this movie in like 7th or 8th grade. And I was expecting, like, I knew 81 was too high, but I thought 31, 33 was too low. No, this movie's silly, though. This movie is silly. Like, it made me laugh. Like, I'll flip the tasteless and just, like, it I'm not going to say it warms your heart like Showgirls or Battlefield Earth, but it's so stupid.
Yeah, I think this movie does a lot of really obvious things that I just howled at, right? Like, there's for anyone who doesn't know, in this movie explores the idea of someone going back in time, doing something different to correct a wrong, and then it starts a new timeline with unforeseen consequences, right? And I really couldn't help but laugh. In one of the timelines, it starts off with Ashton Kutcher. It's the one where basically he in the future is an amputee, right? He like has no arms or legs. But when they reveal that, I thought it was so funny because he's like stretching.
Shameless.
And it's like, oh man, why aren't my arms in frame? Because they're not there. Like, they zoom out and it's so obvious. This movie does a lot of really silly things that are supposed to be like shocking sort of moments or a wow moment, but it just comes off as silly. I think it either takes itself way too seriously or not seriously enough. It's kind of like a mix of both. And it has, again, some interesting ideas, but ultimately it kind of just goes for shock value when in doubt. So that is my biggest beef with this movie.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually think that I'll say the pro right off the bat. I think conceptually, and I think why a lot of people remember it fondly, maybe, is because it actually isn't like a terrible time travel concept.
Right.
It's not that bad. It's and also what I like it does explore when a lot of time travel movies don't explore a lot are the paradoxes that occur when you change time.
Mhm.
I think, unfortunately, though, this movie breaks its own rules consistently,
Yes.
and
It doesn't really have rules. They don't really set anything up, though. But yeah.
Well, I find it so funny too because it's the butterfly effect, and the idea of that comes from the idea that something so insignificant, if you change it in the past, could have huge ramifications on the future. But it seems to me like almost the opposite is happening in this movie, where he'll do really big differences in his past for sometimes very small differences in the future. Like
yes,
the only difference in his own life between the first timeline and in the third timeline is that him and his roommate sleep on different sides of the dorm room. That's like the only difference. His life is totally the same in the first and third timelines. I mean, it's everyone else's life that gets fucked up, but like there's not huge changes in the timelines that you'd expect. There's just kind of like a few things that are different, even though he's going back and do what are actually more monumental changes.
there's a really, really unforgivably stupid scene in this movie that happens. It's really bad on both levels, and I think this was the moment of the movie where I'm just like, fuck this, I can't. Are we allowed to curse on this? I don't know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Because I was watching it. I was gonna give it a real fighting chance, and then this moment happened, and it's the scene where he's in jail after killing. He kills. I'm already
The
forgetting
brother,
characters'
Amy.
names.
Right. It's like
Kills the
whatever the names
brother.
are.
She kills the
Yeah.
brother in the college in the fraternity timeline, and he ends up in prison. And
Yeah.
in prison, he convinces an inmate that has he has
The power.
the
Whatever it
power
is.
of God, really. And
Oh,
he exploits his belief in Jesus, to help him out with his escape. And this is where it really breaks its own logic because he goes back in time. He stigmatas himself. He
Yeah.
goes back to his elementary school classroom and he finds like two sharp objects and he stigmatas himself. And that's not okay. That's not what I have a problem with. Although it was really stupid. He calls out his teacher's name and then he does it. Like, okay,
Right before he slams his hands
right before
on
he
these
slams
spikes.
it, and that should have a larger impact than it does. But when he comes back, he's right back in the prison. That doesn't make any sense. It breaks
No effect at all.
no effect at all. And okay, here's where it gets worse. That his inmate Pablo, is played by a white actor in really bad.
Yeah,
brown
I was
face.
like, wait a second. I'm looking at this guy like, huh. Like, I'm not sure about this casting.
It's like
Shouldn't
right
he
there,
have the
man.
stigmata going into that prison? Like that's like the whole logic of him. He would have stigmata going into the prison of that timeline as opposed to just it forming.
Yeah, right. Because he just
Yeah.
There are times where he goes back and he does something, and he goes right back to the same timeline, right? But it's unclear what exactly he has to do to go to a different timeline. But the hands thing, I would think that if you maimed your hands in the past, you would have a pretty significant something would have to change. It wouldn't be in the exact same
Right,
spot.
exactly.
The only difference now is that your hands have scars. That's the only difference. That's what I'm saying. Like, instead of little things that make big changes, it's huge things that have very minute changes. That's the opposite of the butterfly effect.
I feel like I went to like a local town city festival, nothing like Cannes or Sundance in 2004, and this was the movie that was like some kids made this right out of college. It's the it's made right out for like the MTV
Yeah.
people. Like it looks like a music
No, it's
video
certainly
half the
edited one. I
time.
was gonna say, yeah, edited.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that the color palette changes a lot in this movie? And I
Awfully.
find that to be
It does, yeah.
that is like another very obvious thing. Like during the fraternity timeline, like before he goes to college, when everything's hunky dory, it's like a very bright and colorful look to it. And then like he goes to prison and everything is like muted, or like in the timeline when Amy Smart's a prostitute, everything is like grimier looking. It's like a lot of very obvious things that the movie's doing. And I think the movie is trying to come off as like cool or edgy, but it's all like surface level. Nothing actually
Right.
in the way of interesting writing, just again going for the shock value.
My favorite moment was like the timeline when he wants to save his dog, or like, and he gives Lenny like this sharp thing. He's like, "This is going to use this to cut the rope." Okay. And he manages to convince Tommy to not burn the dog, and everything's going to turn out okay. And Lenny comes back and stabs him. That took me by surprise. Like, just like the day is saved. Chunk.
Yeah. Which, like,
Into
why?
the bag.
Like, I get,
Like,
I don't know.
He made like Lenny repeat, like, "This is for the rope." This is
He's very explicit about
Very
it.
explicit. Very in your face, direct. No, not
Which
a lot
also,
of subtlety.
It also seems to me like he can, like he redos the Eric Stoltz scene twice. Twice he goes back to the scene where the dad is filming
Why do we have
them.
to revisit that scene twice? Seriously.
Twice. I mean, I wish they didn't do it in the first place. That
Really?
was so
That's
tasteless.
tasteless.
That's
was
the
like-
tasteless.
that's
That's the tasteless keyword.
that's the
right there.
That was
tasteless.
handled so horribly, but they revisit that scene twice. So it seems to me like in the timeline when Lenny kills Tommy, which was not intended, it seems maybe he could just go back again and this time be like, definitely don't kill Tommy. Like it seems like he could maybe try again.
He wasn't trying hard enough. I think he could have tried
No.
to tweak some of his his time travels.
What was he
Also,
trying?
Tommy was like half the height. I kept watching this, going like, all these kids are like, pretty tall for their age, and then Tommy comes in at like half. Like he goes up to, like he's half of the kid's height.
I think
Comes up to his waist. Like he's a short
He's got
kid.
Wolverine strength though. He picks up that stool and beats the shit out of that guy.
yeah.
He tackled when another favorite moment is like he tackles that woman and her baby.
Oh man,
And
I'll
that's
save
what
you,
made it
lady.
become like he full on like tackles her,
That
and
was
that's
such,
like
that was such a hilariously obvious like ADR line as well. I'll save you, lady. Like what? So out of character.
So
like the
bad.
baby flies out of her hand.
Which again, I also thought that was another very cheap ploy. Is that the stick of dynamite kills a woman and her newborn baby? Like it's not enough to just like harm someone. They have to kill a baby as like the thing. Because that is like an unforgivably horrible thing that they kind of just gloss over. And that's what I'm saying. The movie could doesn't have to make it that extreme, but it kind of does for, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the shock value. Like the other thing too, when he decides to go all the way back to when him and Amy Smart character first meet as kids, and he's like, okay, the only way to make things right is for us to never be friends in the first place. So he goes back to that first meeting. And instead of just being like, I don't want to be friends with you, go away, he says to her, I'm going to kill your whole damn family if you talk to me again. Like, what? Like, why does he have to be a psycho?
It's
Just
miserable. It's just a miserable film.
I know. It's just constantly making, like, the worst choices you could possibly think of.
I remember before the blackout was holding my hands over Kaylee's ears. I think I was more focused on her hands on mine than I realized I was
Lady, stay back! Don't go near the mailbox!
Idiots!
I mean it when we get the hell back!
I'll save you, lady!
I actually watched a little bit of the director's cut, or the director's ending.
I'm
And-
aware of it. I've never seen it.
And if you want to know like theatrical shock value, is that for the viewers at home, the theatrical cut was he does go back as a kid and tells Amy Smart's character to F off and all that stuff. But the original, in the script, this is like the original ending of the movie that the directors wanted. He goes back all the way to when he was a fetus, like right before he's born, and wraps the umbilical cord
Yes.
around his neck, like that.
He-
I'm like that's what they were fighting for.
He goes back in time and kills himself as he's being born, which again is like insane.
Wouldn't he have to have
And
a
they
memory
also-
of that? I don't understand that logic.
I think it's also assumed, or I could be wrong here, that like the mom had 2 other miscarriages or stillbirths before, and I think it's assumed that those other 2 kids were time travelers because it's only in the male. It's. I also had to laugh at that they went into like, you want to check this out? They went into a random fortune teller.
Oh, in
And that's the
in
director's cut. Yeah, that's the
in the
director's
director's
cut.
cut. They do that because I guess it was someone was filming him being born, right? And that's how he was able to
The
do
dad happened to have a camera right there. Yes.
that. Right. Oh, and then I kind of made myself laugh because in the scene when he visits his dad and then he blacks out and then the dad's strangling him and then they kill the dad to get him off, which is, again, like the worst possible thing that could happen. The next scene is him in the car, traumatized, but I thought to myself, what if the mom was like, besides your dad getting killed, I thought that went well.
A little bit of levity would have taken this movie a long way. I tell you, some
would've
humor
gone
would have
miles.
been fine.
Yeah, I know. It's taking itself like way too seriously at times.
Really?
Which is really unfortunate because it is so silly. And if it had some sort of self-awareness, I would have appreciated it more. But no, I'm laughing at it and not with it at all. And then the rest of everything, like some of the archetypes too that they play on, like when he's a fraternity guy in the fraternity timeline, the outfit he wears when he's like first like getting used to the fraternity timeline, it is like the most generic, basic frat boy douchey look they could possibly think to put on him. And then his goth roommate is like such an over the top.
Thumper. I love Thumper.
Oh, we got to talk about Thumper.
Thumper.
We got to talk. We got to talk about
Thumper.
Why is Thumper? Not even what. Why is Thumper?
First of all,
what
I
is the
thought-
point of this?
When I forgot, and I had the same mistake when I first watched this movie years ago. I thought Thumper was Lenny, who was so traumatized from his
that
childhood
too.
that he grew up to be like a really extreme, over the top goth kid. But no, it's just like this random guy that's super goth who gets a lot of action and is like, again, it's like someone designed him based off of a Hot Topic catalog. That is what this guy looks like.
I have written under prose Ethan Suplee whistling. Like,
Yeah,
Thumper just breaks a pool stick and starts whistling at a bunch of fraternity brothers and sorority sisters, and I was like,
Yeah.
why is Thumper, like, what is the purpose?
Why
of this
is like there's
serves no
there's
purpose.
no there's like I kind of threw away of this character or a lot of characters having arcs in this movie, but it's just like there's no like why like
don't know
he's just
what
having sex on the bed like Jabba the Hutt. And granted, this is what Ethan Suplee was like he looks great now, but this is what him and his like obese like they I don't know. I don't know what the point of this character.
He was coming fresh off of Boy Meets World, if the time in my head works right, like that, like just
and all the Kevin Smith movies too, like
Oh, he was
and
in those.
American History X, like he was. But it's just like I thought this character would have like some kind of like, oh, this is like I thought they were friends before, maybe, or
they just happen to be
maybe,
random
like,
roommates. I mean, he's a pretty terrible roommate. He has sex in Ashton Kutcher's bed.
The whole
at one point.
it's very strange. The whole college subplot to me is very unfocused and underdeveloped because we have Evan set up to be, writing, like he's doing research that's supposed to change the way scientists think about the brain. And I'm obviously thinking to myself, okay, he's at this point, he's already figured out maybe the time travel abilities. And that's what they're talking about. But they never really go into what he's studying and how it even pertains to time traveling. I thought it was going to be like a lead way, like that was going to transition into his discovery. But the reason he discovers it is because Hookup one night is just like forces him to read his misery diaries.
Right. He could have been studying anything else.
I'm waiting.
It was almost as if the fact that he's studying memories was a complete coincidence and fluke, and has, again, nothing that doesn't bring him to rediscover the journals. You're right. It's like completely irrelevant to everything that's going on, even though at first you think it'll have something to do with it. I mean, the work that he's doing too, it sounds like he's doing PhD work, not undergrad studying of like changing the way that we think about memories. Like, it is very like vague and unclear. I do have to say too, the one thing I was impressed back then, and I still am now, is how they were able to cast kids who really do look like the younger versions of the characters. Specifically, like they casted kids who did look like young versions of Ashton Kutcher. Maybe just because they have the same haircut the whole time.
My girlfriend noticed.
I didn't know that was Logan Lerman.
Yeah, that is Logan.
I didn't know that was Logan.
Yeah, who actually was in a movie we recently discussed, Noah, right? But that took me a second to notice him. But yeah, like I was like, oh man, like yeah, maybe because just the haircut. But these kids do like, I kind of buy this the growth of the characters from kids to teens.
I know people hate it. This is such a weird movie to one positive, or at least one thing that I didn't mind was a lot. Even the critics kind of like, I didn't like Ashton Kutcher, and ergo that made the movie worse for me. I think because of if the main character of this movie was a college, like because of how they wrote the main character, that Ashton Kutcher filled that role pretty. I thought he was fine.
He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. I think this might have been his first like non-comedic role. I'm not sure. I know just a few years before he had a groundbreaking performance in Dude, Where's My Car? And I forget what he was in between. I think this was also around the time that he was doing Punk'd. But this is like maybe
he was living
thing.
Like he was like in movies with Brittany Murphy, and he was doing this was him, like I guess he fell in love with the script because I think the movie got funding, or it got greenlit because of him signing on to it.
I mean, he was a big name at the time, right? I mean, he definitely had appeal.
Yeah.
So I can see that. And then who else in the cast? Amy Smart, who I don't know, is like hit and miss for me. I feel like Amy Smart, I don't know a ton of movies she's in, but anytime I see her in something, she always seems to just raise her voice a lot. That's kind of like her acting style.
Everyone's just fine in this. I don't know. I think she's better than Ashton Kutcher. I think Ashton Kutcher is fine up until the ending. There's like the last 5 minutes. I feel like he goes like full Kelso. Like it's like, I want my journals. I want them now. Like, I feel like I'm like
in the last timeline.
Watching a comedy. I feel like
when the doctor is explaining, like, you know, like you have your hands, like it's just explaining this whole, like trying to confuse the audience, like this is a dream the entire time. It's like,
I didn't buy that.
You were never a sorority man. You were never a sorority man. The movie really tries
to make you think the whole thing might have been in his head the whole time. Like, get the hell out of here with that crap. I'm not buying that for a second. And yeah, those last 5 minutes when he has the longer hair. And it's like that last timeline. They do this thing that I feel like a few other thrillers did at the time, where they start the movie with a scene that's from the end sequence, right? The movie opens up with a scene from the end. They basically repeat it again at the end, which might make sense for this movie with the concept of going back in time. But it's not like he's going back to the beginning of the movie in that moment. The movie, just from an editing point of view, just goes back to the beginning, and so it really serves no purpose at all to start the movie with the climax of the film, of the story. And like, what is he even doing? He like is writing on a piece of paper for no reason, like, if you find this, then I am dead. Like, what? Like, why are you writing this? Who is this for?
Set up some suspense. I don't know what they were trying to do.
Just for like some confusion.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what he was trying to accomplish by that. But right, I think Swordfish is another movie that comes to mind. That is like it starts off at like the big thing at the end, and then let's retrace our steps and find out how we got here. Does that add anything? Does that make the movie more interesting? Not really.
What time is it?
It's time for you to do what I tell you to do.
Wrong answer, fuckbag. This is the very moment of your reckoning. In the next 30 seconds, you're gonna open up one of two doors. The first door will forever traumatize your own flesh and blood.
What's happening? How are you doing this?
I will say though, Ashton Kutcher, Evan running around the hallways at the end. I don't know if you've ever seen the Harry Potter movies, but when Filch, the custodian Filch runs around Hogwarts, he's got this weird hunch run. I just couldn't take it seriously at the end. It was very strange, and it was just, I don't know. It was unintentionally.
This movie makes a lot of weird. Yeah, no, it's like the I started to like. I know it was like a tough scene for the actors or for the characters, but why did they have, when Amy Smart is leaving work for the first time, like, you know, she's a waitress, and it hits all the tropes. She's bad at her job, the guy grabs her ass, she's like, and then Ashton Kutcher comes in and she goes, why would you remind me of all that, why are you here? And she like runs away.
Into the
it
night.
kind of reminded me. It's just like she's crying. It kind of reminded me of like when Lainey from Not Another Teen Movie would cry and run out of the room. It's just like, oh, don't cut the cap. Like, don't be on the street and having this conversation, because she's like walking for another like 2 miles or something. And then the brother calls. He somehow found out the number to Ashton Kutcher. It's like, oh yeah, by the way. Like, I'm gonna kill you for what you did to my sister. By the way, if you want to call me back, my number is 324.
Yeah, I know. The brother just constantly wants to kill Ashton Kutcher.
Tommy should be put down. Tommy should have been put down.
Well, I don't know. It seems like, I guess the movie's trying to say that because of like the childhood abuse, he turns out so problematic.
But
because then in the timeline where Ashton Kutcher has no arms or legs, that is when, you know, he had actually an amazing childhood and turns out to be like the complete opposite character, this Tommy guy. Then he turns out to be like a born-again Christian who is like, has no sort of resemblance at all to the character. Yeah. From then on, he was like a saint. And he had no resemblance at all to the other versions of the character.
Yeah, why in that timeline did he just decide to, you know, do the right thing?
And then,
sure, I mean, butterfly
become one of the characters from the Book of Mormon, I guess. Yeah, that's
right.
The butterfly.
That's the butterfly effect, right?
He was like threatening Lenny, like the part where that's true to the timeline itself. Like, he like threatens Lenny to like, yeah, I'm not going out there. Like, you do it, you pussy.
Yeah,
or something like that.
He says a lot of like really upsetting things. So yeah, he says to Lenny like, another word and I'll kill your mother in your sleep, or in her sleep, or something like that. Because then Lenny, when he's traumatized as an adult, he does like the Rain Man thing where he's like repeating things, and like he said, he repeats the Tommy lines. So
and Evan goes, so you like model planes?
You think? His whole fucking room has got nothing but model planes. Oh, model planes, huh? I guess the one thing that I thought was interesting from a setup perspective was the mystery of the blackouts. As a kid, he's constantly blacking out, and you don't know why. And then it turns out that those are the windows in which he can go back in time to. So I thought that was the one kind of clever idea.
I did too.
That's like, oh, okay, so that's what's going on. Well, like,
yeah,
like why, for example, he blacks out. You know, in the one time when he spikes his hands, that's when he also had done that really disturbing drawing, which turns out to be of the prison character, him like murdering the prison guards. Like, why would he have taken the time when he goes back into this flashback to do this drawing of him killing the other inmates? Why that must have taken like so much time to do before he spikes his hands. Like
I guess that was supposed to show like his deteriorating mental state, kind of similar to his father. But I was watching it too. Like, why is he just going to take the time to do a pretty good drawing of inmates being murdered?
Him murdering the inmates, which I guess when you first see that, that's supposed to be like a foreshadow, or it's supposed to be like, oh, so that's why he drew that. But that doesn't really explain why he drew it. It just explains where it comes from. I don't know, that didn't really, like many other things, it didn't add up.
Conceptually, I really do like the blackout idea, and it does address the paradox issue. But you're right, the execution. Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah,
some of
I
those
know.
choices
Even the times, like, so his idea too, when he goes back to the scene with Eric Stoltz, and he calls Eric Stoltz the same thing a couple times, like fuck bag. Is that what he calls Eric Stoltz? Like, hey, fuck bag, like, be a normal father, and like all this guy needed to, all this like perverted pedophile dad needed was a stern talking to from a young boy, and he totally turns around and becomes like a good father after that.
He gets really right into the movie making.
Yeah. Like he's not there for like 5 minutes. He's like, we're gonna make a movie. Take your clothes off. It's like, whoa.
Jumps right into it. That's the trash. That's the trash.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, Eric Stoltz kind of has that creepy vibe to him, especially in this movie. And so the second he appears on screen, I'm like, oh man, is he gonna be like a pedo or something? And like, sure enough, he is. Like the way they make him out.
Right. I found it really strange that in those flashbacks to the Eric Stoltz character thing, I hate it. But what I don't understand is, and I understand that Logan Lerman, who was playing young Evan, it was supposed to be shocking that the words that he was saying were like, supposed to be really confusing and baffling Eric Stoltz, right? But Ashton Kutcher hasn't ever really, like, his character was never crass. Like, you don't see his character being overly crass. He doesn't call people like fuck bags and stuff like that. So to see kind of that disconnect with Logan Lerman and Ashton Kutcher, like, I understand what they were trying to do. Like, they were trying to have him come off, shocking, that it would make Eric Stoltz think, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, it's a good point. There's definitely a lot of inconsistency with the Evan characterization too. Yeah, because you would think then when he goes into his younger selves, they would emulate the persona of Ashton Kutcher the way he's done it. But then also in the fraternity storyline or timeline, I thought it was really out of character that he would straight up kill like the Tommy character after like subduing him. Like, he sprays him with the mace, and I can understand he's mad, but he just like takes that bat and just bashes his head in. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, why? Like, how did he become like this super violent character all of a sudden when he wasn't like that at all for the rest of the movie?
We got to get from plot A to plot B.
Yeah,
and they're not that equipped. Granted, these guys did write Final Destination 2, and
that
they
makes sense.
created. I really don't want to like. I can understand they must have written this screenplay, and I think a lot of people like read it, like, and it does have an intriguing it has a really good elevator pitch. It has a good engine if it was a car, and then it's on a shitty car. It just like they get to the end and they go, wait a minute, like what? Yeah. Like, who's Thumper? Why? I bet every person who read the script is saying, what the fuck is the point of Thumper?
Yeah.
And it's just It's like giving your teenage self like an opportunity to write a script.
Yeah,
it's like how like fuck bag, like
know,
you get to curse willy nilly, and it kind of makes sense that like once Ashton Kutcher, who was like he was on top of the world at this time, like his career was at a career high. Like once he signed on to it, they could make this movie made bank. And I know why. This is a great Friday mall movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the dialogue definitely left something to be desired. I mean, not just I mean, from the characters all around. There was like in the fraternity timeline when Ashton Kutcher's like, sorry, am I acting weird or something? And Amy Smart has a line that's like, well, if you think 4 orgasms are weird, then yeah, ha ha ha. Like, what? There's just some really odd, and it's like, how do you deliver some of these lines? Like, the actors try their best, but it's like I wouldn't know where to start with some of these lines.
Yeah.
it's like an actor's challenge when you get some really baffling dialogue. How do you what can you possibly say?
Oh, when she was a hooker, and she was the hookiest hooker who ever hooked.
Oh, so cliche. Like the rundown apartment, like the bad teeth, the outfit, and everything. It's
you
like
got you got 15 minutes. I got another appointment next. It's like, oh.
Yeah. It's every sort of characterization is the most cliched sort of thing you can think of, whether it's a prostitute or fraternity, sorority, like a troubled teen or something. Because even when you first see them as, like, I guess young teenagers, 13-year-olds, it's like, oh man, this Evan character, he's so cool. He wears t-shirts over his sweaters, and
Independent skating company shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the
And they're
shaggy
smoking.
hair, and they're smoking cigarettes. What a cool guy.
Let's go see Seven. It's out in
Yeah,
the theaters
they-
right now.
They drew a lot of attention to the movie Seven, which I'm pretty sure these are all New Line Cinema movies, right? Because even the marquee of the movie theater was like Dumb and Dumber and Seven. And I'm like, okay, it's very much 1995, I suppose, like early 1995. And I'm pretty sure those are New Line Cinema movies. So, like, were they just trying to, like, these are the movies we have access to, so, like, put them in there.
Yeah, I bet it was just like a random movie in the script. I
But
just
the
love how
poster,
that.
Seven poster was in frame for at least, like, I mean, the whole sequence before they go in, that Seven poster is in frame for a while. I'm like, are they trying to promote, like, the DVD or something? What's
We've
going
done
on?
good movies too. That's what.
Sure.
I love that whole sequence at how a random person trips Tommy. Tommy beats him like with an inch of his life and he's escorted out by ushers.
Yeah, no police.
Like, he's escorted, like, no police. They're not even like citizens arresting this kid. He's just escorted. Like, get out. I think one did say, like, get out of here, kid. Like,
yeah, shoo, scram. And he, like, freaking bashed in that guy's face. Yeah, everything is so extreme in this movie. It's kind of exhausting.
It's a little
By the
exhausting.
end, I was like kind of relieved that it was over.
It's repetitive, and I think that's the biggest problem, because you don't really get any character progression because they just keep jumping back and forth and changing characters up, and you don't really get there's not a lot of consistency with the characters, and
Right.
you don't really care for them.
And the timelines are too similar. That's another problem. Like, in each timeline, he's at the same college, and it would have been really interesting if he found himself, like, in really drastically different situations instead of, like, the same setting every time. Like, your life is not that drastically different.
well, my question to you both is, and this thought occurred to me when I was watching this. If you had a chance in this 2021 viewing world, I said it before that the engine of this movie is good. Could this make a pretty, like, a good miniseries? Like, in the age of Queen's Gambit, could this be? I would actually, like, you don't even have to use Evan. I actually just think the premise. Could
Just
this
the
even
concept.
make a
No,
just
that's
the
actually
concept?
a great question, because I wanted to bring that up. I always think that, yeah, we're in reboot culture, remake culture. Everything is just ripe for remaking, right? But they
Absolutely.
usually just kind of remake great stuff, and I never understand why. It's like that's great. Why even touch that? But then you
Let's
get
remake The
yeah,
Lion King.
right. But then you get stuff like Westworld, right, which was based off of a 1970s property, which was great conceptually, but maybe it wasn't executed all that great. And so
And
you
before
bring
its
it back.
time, right?
And it was
Yeah.
before its time. So you bring it back, you give it a miniseries on HBO, you revamp it, you get different writers, different team, better directors. You could definitely take the Butterfly Effect and make it good. Somehow, they made 7 sequels to this, I feel, though, on direct-to-DVD sequels.
I believe there are 2 sequels that may have been direct to DVD
Yeah.
that I like. I've heard of the sequels. I never looked into it.
Oh,
But
I'm not surprised. Something like this makes money. It's just like, well, just do it again. Like,
this was
Final
also the age
Destination made like,
yeah,
there's like 8 of them.
I believe this was the age of straight to DVD movies and that were sequels, right, coming out. So I'm not surprised by that. Usually they were thrillers. Yeah, I think conceptually you could, if you first of all have something more to say about human behavior, if you have, I mean, like anything else, like interesting characters and better dialogue, blah blah blah. But I feel like this concept in particular, you could really say something about human psychology and how people are prone to make the same mistakes, and tap into that desire to go back and change a thing or two. Like there is a lot of potential in this concept. It's just a shame that they were content to settle for cheap thrills.
Yeah.
Instead of really like diving in and maybe having something actually interesting to say. For one.
It's pretty muddled in their message. They're pretty like.
What are they even saying? I don't even know what they're trying to say.
Yeah, what are they saying, and do they even say it right?
I thought
Like-
because the color of grass in that movie is just, it's not the right color of green. If you notice,
Well,
if you look at the grass,
that comes down to the color palette, right?
Right,
It
it comes
keeps
down to the
changing
color
over and over
palette,
again.
right?
Nothing looks natural.
nothing looks natural, but maybe the grass is greener on the other side. That was the visual metaphor they were going for. I don't know. That's probably
Maybe.
over.
No, but he muddled. No,
The directors
no.
would be like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what we
yeah,
were
yeah,
doing.
yeah. That's it.
Well-
This guy gets it.
Like I thought like you can't change your past. Like you have to accept some things in your past, but all their lives are pretty. All their pasts are pretty awful, and he does change their past.
Right. He goes all the way and changes pretty much their entire lives, right? Because the issue, I suppose, was that he was trying to change their post-childhood lives because all their childhoods are really shitty. But what he had to do at the end was totally change everything, the childhoods themselves, which led to much healthier adulthood lives. Because the Amy Smart character wasn't friends with Ashton Kutcher's character, she decided to live with the mom instead of the dad, and then therefore they were raised in a healthy environment, blah blah blah. And then she's a career woman in Manhattan wearing a white suit. The end. And by the way, cliches of cliches, when they kind of look at each other, and of course he recognizes her, but she kind of is like, who was that? Oh well, and keeps walking. I'm like, oh brother, like why should she have any sort of like connection to him at that point?
They had a field day that day because there are other alternate like endings for that. It's just like one of them is just they both stop and she's like, "Do I know you from somewhere?" He goes, "No, Haley, you look like a Haley." He does say like, "You look like a Haley," which
they
is
have more endings than the self-abortion one.
yeah.
Oh no.
Yes, there are.
I actually the theatrical ending shows Evan passing Kaylee on the sidewalk. He sees her, but keeps walking. The happy ending shows Evan and Kaylee stopping on the sidewalk when they cross paths. They introduce themselves, and that like 2 sentences in, he's like, "Do you want to go for coffee?" Which I thought he was on the phone with his girlfriend, but that's another.
Yeah, I mean, I assume he has because his life is totally different at that point. He has probably a whole different set of friends. Or maybe he just went back to the same college, and that's Thumper he's talking to. Who knows?
And the open-ended alternate ending is similar to the one where they pass each other, except this time Evan, after hesitating, turns and follows her.
Okay.
They must have had fun that day.
I
They must have said,
kinda
just
like
come up
that.
with anything.
I kind of like that idea a little better for some reason. It's like a little less cliche. It's a little more ambiguous, and kind of has more of an effective, creepy feeling to it. Like he's maybe gonna stalk her and maybe not do anything bad, but maybe just kind of like find out what her life is like now. Now that he's like knows where she is. I mean, the odds that they would pass
Yeah.
each other at any point.
Did that ending still have Oasis over it though?
Yes, I believe that was it. Right? It was an Oasis song.
Weird. Okay.
Do I know you?
Evan. Kaylee. You look like a Kaylee. I'd love to get a cup of coffee with you sometime.
I will say
but-
this for this movie.
Okay.
It tried. It tried to be very clever. And the best example of this is they refer to his last name a few times in the movie. And his last name is Treborn. Or Treborn or something like that. And it was bothering me. Like, this is not a last name, is it? Treborn. And
Sounds like a made-up name.
seems like a total made-up name.
A movie made up
A
name.
total movie made-up
Yeah.
name. And I was sitting with my girlfriend. I was just saying Treborn, and then it just hit me. His name is Evan Treborn. Event Reborn. And that is the extent of this movie trying to be clever.
I hate that. Boo!
Evan Treborn.
That.
Event
That
Reborn.
is definitely who would
Sucks.
get that, man. I first of all, like, I tip my hat to you.
I play
for
Mad
getting that.
Gabs. I don't know if you ever play Mad Gabs, but
Maybe I will now.
But
If you hadn't said that, I would have never have realized that in a million years.
Is it clever then? Or no, it's
That
still
is
not.
that is trying way too
Well,
hard. I'm also not.
You just gave all the audience people that give this, like, there are people that fucking love this movie.
Right,
and
they're all gonna be like, see, it is
They
clever.
hate don't listen to the critics, and I'm like, these comments are not written in 2004. Like, I don't.
Right.
God, they need to listen to this. Like,
I find
you
that
can-
so funny too. Who in like recent years has taken the time to go on Rotten Tomatoes and write a positive review about the butterfly effect? Like, who has time to do that? Who thinks to do that? Because a lot of people have, apparently.
It's got a what was the divide again? It was pretty big.
It's a
50 something. Like,
yeah. So it was 81% approval with critics. That's sorry, with audiences. Really high.
It's pretty
with
impressive
audiences.
for an audience score. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a solid B. And then you have 33% from critics, which is like a very solidly bad score. So it's really polarizing.
It's funny. You said, "Is this the Nickelback of time travel movies?" And you know what? It's not, because it's more like Limp Bizkit. It's more like it's because I feel like there are people who really like that, like really like nu metal, like POD and all those bands, and they thought it was really cool and edgy, and they have fond memories of it. But when you listen to it now, you're like, okay, what was I thinking when I was a kid? And that's what Butterfly Effect comes off as to me.
That's a good point, because I do remember being impressed with this as a kid. I guess I was 13 when this comes out. And again, like, especially with the whole blackout sequence thing and finding out what that meant, I thought that was clever. And I wind up, I guess, feeling like, okay, that was like good and interesting. But then the more you think about it, and I guess the more you become a experienced film goer and see much better films in comparison, then you realize all for like the shallowness that it is. So I don't know, maybe these are fans. I guess fans that just maybe never changed their minds about it years later. I don't know if they go.
They
back
haven't
to
watched it. They haven't watched it recently. That's
Yeah.
my guess. And come at me if you did. But
Right.
this
Who's
isn't
going back to
Nickelback. This isn't Nickelback, and I had to look up the band that it reminded me of, since this is Good Charlotte.
Oh.
This is a band. This
Okay.
is a movie that I might have loved in 8th grade, 7th grade, or even like there's a place Soft Ocean Avenue. I've been listening
Yellow
to
Card.
this music recently. Yellow Card.
Yeah.
It's like actually that song still slaps. Like Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous is a goofy music video. It's a song that I might like slap my knee to, like, nostalgically, but I'm kind of laughing at it.
Yeah. It's
In a way.
Too silly.
It's too silly.
That's funny, man. Yeah. I actually, I was just thinking about it, how the same writers as Final Destination 2, because like this movie is like can be very convoluted and overthought at times, and these guys basically did the same thing to the Final Destination franchise. You guys remember Final Destination 2 and like what went on in that movie? Just like a quick thing, they have like this whole, they actually figure out a way to beat death in that movie. Like, you remember the concept, like they avoid death and now death is after them, and they come up with this whole convoluted thing that because a woman who is supposed to die was pregnant, if she gives birth, then that'll like undo death and save them or something along the lines. I don't know, but these definitely, like, this kind of movie keeps in mind that these guys are like over plotting these concepts and maybe like just thinking about it too much, but at the same time it comes off like they're not thinking about it enough. It's really all over the place. Like, there's too much going on that doesn't add up.
They hand in their first draft and they're like, this is like, that's all you need. We got to get this movie to its premiere. I feel like Butterfly Effect, even the movie, like without a miniseries or anything, if this movie underwent like a lot of like really good criticism and feedback, it could have actually like worked.
Oh yeah, if it was taken more seriously, because first of all, for the record, I mean any concept can be done well, but I would have liked to see too, if you were to try to revisit this concept, I would prefer if you had something where the tiniest little thing that you do in the past has like huge consequences in the future. And it's kind of like now you're going, every time you go back to undo that little thing, you cause another little thing. It takes you in a whole different direction, and really explore this idea of different timelines and all the ways it can bring you. Because in that regard, this movie is very uncreative, because they don't really explore the idea of how different timelines can be. They just kind of are content to stay within like very specific places in time. And timelines, could be it. You should have free range. You could put these characters anywhere. Why do they keep putting them in the same college campus?
That's just typical movie logic stuff.
Yeah,
I know. I also bugs me too. It just shows like how uncreative it could be, right? Like you have.
We're gonna get a stern letter, like from these two guys.
A stern email, fine. Maybe they should go back. And
you write your own Butterfly Effect.
But if they go back and try to rewrite Butterfly Effect, would it change who would star in Butterfly Effect if they went back in time and changed Butterfly Effect? How would Butterfly Effect come out than today?
It would be a different
Topher
actor. Grace. It would I was gonna say a different actor from that 70s show. And instead of Amy Smart, it would be Tara Reid.
Oh yes, yes.
Like it would just be slightly different, not that different.
Oh man.
Okay, let me see.
Alden Henson, I always feel like I didn't know who he was until Daredevil. I feel like he was good, and you said before, Bobby, all the actors were like
fine.
Actually, I would make Thumper the lead. Fuck it,
I would make Thumper the lead. But I love how Topher Grace could possibly portray him in an alternate timeline. I would buy it maybe. I don't know. I'd buy the recast. Thumper, I'm with you though. Give Butterfly Effect from the perspective of Thumper.
Does he look? He doesn't even. What is it? Who's named Thumper? It's from the name too. The more I think about this character, the more it boggles my mind. We should give him a spinoff. Because it seems to me in some of the timelines it doesn't even exist. Because sometimes Lenny is his roommate.
Yes.
Right? And I'm like, well, what happened to Thumper? Where's Thumper?
Yeah, there's no closure for Thumper.
No, that's my biggest criticism of the film.
Look, Jason, I need some fast answers from you if I'm ever going to fix what I've done.
I was praying this curse would have ended with me.
Yeah, but it didn't. So now I need information to make things right again. And you're the only one that can give it to me.
There is no right. You can't change who people are without destroying who they were.
Who says you can't make things better?
You can't play God, son. It must end with me. Just by being here, you may be killing your mother.
That's bullshit.
Okay, so I think, we're far along enough now. We can, sum it up, give our final thoughts, final scores for Butterfly Effect, see who we side with. So, Bobby, take us home here. What is your final take on this movie, and what's your percentage score?
Yeah, so I kind of agree with the consensus for the most part. I would, of the Rotten Tomatoes consensus, it is conceptually well done. It is grim. It can be compelling at points, yes. But yeah, overall, you're right. It can't decide on a tone. It doesn't know whether to take itself too seriously. It doesn't know whether it's just being exploitative trash at times.
Yes.
When I say exploitative trash, I can't emphasize that enough.
That seems
bold,
it's disgusting.
Underlined, italicized.
It's really I watched this movie again and was like, ew. A lot of this movie was just uncomfortable.
I felt dirty during several sequences where I'm like, why am I watching this?
And I'm not a prude or anything, but at least the movies where I see where shock value sometimes is justified, I'll be like, oh, I can kind of recommend it. Something like Saw or something is sort of justified, but this sometimes is
for the sake of it.
Yeah, it's just gross.
Yeah, especially when it basically undermines the potential of the concept too. So what would your percentage be?
It's like a it's like a straight up. It's a 35 to 40. It's misery porn with a good idea.
Okay, we'll put you down at a 35 there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Keith, your final
Oh,
thoughts.
let me knock off 10. It has brown face. It's a 25.
Oh, wait, when does that happen?
Oh yeah, like I was
with
saying,
the jail.
In jail, the inmate Pablo, the guy he has to convince.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I got to dock it 10 points for that.
They whitewashed the Hispanic character.
Yeah.
Also, Ashton Kutcher uncomfortably using racial slurs.
Yeah,
that's where I was like,
yeah.
ooh.
And it's whole sequence too, when he's pretending to submit to the skinheads, like, oh no,
unnecessary.
Totally horrible.
Unnecessary. That's it was just cringeworthy for that.
Yeah. So 25.
Yeah, you put me back. Put me in at 25.
Yeah. 25.
Yeah, will do. For me, I remember just a quick little story. I remember a little movie a year before in 2003. A couple of my friends and I went to go see Freddy vs. Jason, and we thought it was the best movie ever. We probably would have given it an 81. I had no concept of movies and celebrity. I wasn't the person who I was today. And then we showed it a year later or a couple months later at an 8th grade something, and we're like, this movie's amazing. Watch it, everybody. And when we saw it again, we're like, oh, this movie's really bad.
Nice going. Great
This is
recommendation.
how this brought back all those feelings. It's just like I might have thought this was pretty fun watching on a Friday night in the mall with friends, and watching it now, I will at least give it the benefit of the doubt. It made me laugh. It made me laugh at it. It's silly enough. I don't know if it's as funny as Battlefield Earth or Showgirls or The Room. I don't think it's even in my top 20 bad movies. But if it's on, there are some certain things that would make you laugh. So I might be a little generous and just give it a 35. I might give it a 35. There
are some really funny unintentional moments and hysterical. I was in hysterics at one point in the movie.
I'll save you, lady. I think I'm
lady.
gonna be quiet. I think that's in my lexicon. I think that's my lexicon. Honestly, now.
It's horrible to even say this, but the CGI in the amputee scene is hilarious. There's just
so bad.
It's so hard.
So bad.
I don't want to. When she gives him a granola bar,
I was just gonna mention that.
That was so bad.
I thought it was
funny.
But the way they shot it, it's just he grabs it and just crushes it in his hand, and I'm like, oh my god!
It felt like the movie wanted to be funny for a moment, and it failed completely.
Yeah, for a split second.
And it's not. It's the wrong time. It's like he's raising his hands up in the air, going
why? A granola bar is the worst thing you could possibly give to someone who's using those things. Oh man, but yeah, so inappropriate.
For the 5 unintentional laughs though that I got, it's a really hard sit. Like I said, I was squirming in my seat a lot of the times.
You for every sort of chuckle or funny commentary you can do, you get 10 more sort of cringy moments. Right?
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting it to be I was like, this isn't a 33. No, it is.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
I feel like this movie falls into this sort of energy that some of these early to mid 2000s movies had, where everything was extreme and like Freddy versus Jason, for example, or Eight-Legged Freaks, and these kind of movies that were just so over the top in a very unaware sort of way. And that is that was a turnoff for me back then, and it's still a turnoff for me now. So yeah, the tastelessness is a big problem and a waste of an interesting idea. So I think I will agree with you guys, and I'll go with the 30 on this one. I'll place myself in the middle. So that should probably be our average as well, right? The 30%.
Yep.
All right.
We don't recommend this movie.
This feels like a 30%-ish kind of movie, right? When you think about scales of badness, right? You have kind of 40 to 50% movies that are like kind of bad, maybe some good moments. And then when you get into this 30% range, that's when you start to get into like solidly very bad territory. And this movie's definitely in that territory. So I think that's appropriate. So it is official that on the Butterfly Effect, we are siding with the critics. So I will not be going back in time to revisit my memories of this movie, except maybe to stop myself from watching it. Let's see what kind of effect that has on my future timeline. I'll wake up with no arms.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took us till now to make a Butterfly Effect joke about watching this movie.
Yeah, I was wondering for someone to shove it out there, but
There has to be some
easy.
critics.
What are you gonna do?
There has to be a critic review that's like, yeah, I would go back in time and not watch this or something like that.
Roger Ebert called it a metaphysical mess, and I'm like, that's a good way.
Yeah,
that's
a good way of
You
putting
know
it.
what, too? There's a pretty funny Family Guy joke that they made about this movie. It's like, I think in the episode they're stuck. They go into a panic room when like burglars break in, and someone's like, "Wow, Peter, like, what gave you the idea to get a panic room?" And the movie Panic Room had come out recently, I guess. And so he's like, "Yeah, it's after I watched that movie, The Butterfly Effect. I thought to myself, how can I get away from this movie?" Like, this is the perfect kind of movie to like that kind of joke about. All right. Well, thanks, Bobby, for joining us today and discussing
absolutely.
Butterfly Effect. This was a lot of fun having you on, and hopefully we can get you on again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll do one more plug. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm at Bobby Tarino. This is my name. I had a lot of fun. I know. I never want to revisit this again. I'm with you.
We'll give you one that you will enjoy. I like to mix it up, and if we get someone on for a movie they like, then hopefully I can find something they can be more critical about, and it'll be vice versa for you. We'll get something you will enjoy watching and enjoy talking about, for sure. So thanks again, Bobby, and thanks everyone for listening, and join us again next time for another Divided Film. Thanks a lot. Bye.